Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question from the last video, and that is basically how do you break free of, how do you get liberated from the saga, from the epic saga of the engineered chaos and the crazy making that is part of what permeates a relationship with someone who has a personality disorder, someone who is narcissistic, malignant narcissistic, covert narcissistic, antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, these sort of issues. Basically, one of the main issues that differentiates these people from the rest of the gamut is that these people are oftentimes highly manipulative, highly charming, very bullying, very controlling, and really sort of wanting to pull the strings. And involved in that is a real desire to only settle unless they get their way, which requires them to sort of dull, tune out, minimize, and be very dismissive of the experiences, inputs of others. So they're very easily will sweep others aside unless it all sort of focuses back and funnels back and loops back to being supportive of them or helping elevate them to achieve whatever it is that their goal orientation is. So for them, it might be to have all sorts of flings. For them, it might be to keep crazy hours. For them, it might be in control of the finances, control of the context at work, control of what you hear or don't hear. So there's this real interplay of information, this real sort of secretive side where they will really deliberately withhold information from you and treat relationships very divisively, sort of in a pick and choose. They feel sort of on top of it that way. It's just they do have an insatiable need for power and control and an excessive need for admiration. So it's a differentiator than the rest of maybe the other type of relationships you encounter. And really the problem with these relationships is they require a lot of emotional, psychic, spiritual, physical energy to deal with, process, maintain, and then basically, move through. So to be liberated from, to break free from this sort of engineered chaos is to understand the cause that creates this effect and really identify it for what it is and tune into yourself rather than always tuning into them as you were programmed, conditioned, trained, taught, rehearsed, again and again. Repetition and experience is what has ingrained certain habits of perspective, outlook, especially as how you relate to yourself. This is what we're talking about. We are talking about the effects then of the intrapersonal relationship. In psychology, you have intrapersonal, which is a relationship within yourself. Plato, written on all the temples of ancient Greece, know thyself. So that was a big tagline. That was a big promo back in the day. That was a big news flash. That was like the going trend. Know thyself. So he was a big philosopher, yada yada. Back in the day, don't quote me on this, but it's more like philosophers and governing was kind of fused. And so it was a little bit of a different, but anyway, so in psychology, to just inform you or educate you, you've got intrapersonal relationship where some people have very, very good intrapersonal skills, which means they have a very good relationship with themselves. Oh boy, peace and harmony. We sure did not cover this in kindergarten. Okay, well, very good. It's probably because it is managed while you're growing up. It is really, you develop that sense of self, sense of self-esteem, sense of your environment, and then, the rules that govern and the boundaries that protect you, namely, that is there to protect you and to help support you. So that should be really the foundation, really, of your truth and self-reference point. Now, that is not always picture perfect. That is not what we're talking about, some ideal. We're talking about the real. But when this gets, wronged, when you have in relationships with people who are narcissistic or psychopathic, they will utilize a sort of an engineered chaos to keep people in the dark, to keep you guessing, to, basically the way I look at it is keeping you in the dark, meaning basically they try to teach you rules that will stifle you. They teach you that if you do something, that you will be violation of something, maybe that's like, according to them, it's a big sin, a big mortal sin. And so it really plunges people into what I would call dark days of doubt. So a lot of people, and they try to stay chipper, happy and everything, but the engineered chaos will create a lot of drama for people, a lot of depression, anxiety, fear. Intimidation is usually the tactic, meaning they try to overrule by overpowering you, overshouting, being very angry. False intimidation by another is where they're so aversive that they're trying to convince you that you're guilty of some wrong and you do not even know what it is. So you will never ever have the chance to right a wrong with them. They try to always keep you feeling stuck in this I am wrong state. And there's something wrong with me and I am not enough is usually the sort of situation where you are canned into. And so the doubt really makes people upset, angry, hostile. They flip a gasket, flip the handle, flip a roof tile, lose their cool, lose their marbles, lose their eggs, whatever it is. Something usually gets extreme and you're like, this is like embarrassing. I do not want my life to be this way. I don't want to feel this way. Excuse me. And so people do not usually like this feeling, but they're usually heavy zip-lipped because they're taught that you do not question their statement. So they will not really engage in, when we're talking about the engineered chaos, there's some sort of drama that is designed to keep you off center and off focus and out of alignment and out of attunement with that intrapersonal relationship. So you get sort of shut off from that. That gets kind of like put into a crawl space, a basement. And that's kind of like it's kind of like a Cinderella story, if you will, for men too. And then, then they, the engineered chaos sort of keeps you always on a reactive state, a self-doubting state. They'll say things like rhetorical questions with, commands, which is more, the narcissist and the psychopath, they don't really engage in conversation. They engage more in commanding didactic, if you will. I don't know if that's, this is, just, it's a coercive control, I think is what they would call it in psychology, but it's a very controlling or commanding didactic, which is, it's meant to be very, what might feel like very heavy-handed, dark, unsupportive, cold, clammy, something that makes you feel that you're on shaky ground, otherwise known as walking on eggshells, fearful, not knowing where to cling to, not knowing that you have anything to hold on to. So then people end up buying into this sort of drama, the brainwashing and gaslighting, especially that's created that, you should not feel this way. You shouldn't, do this. Just because I cheated, it was just, and you shouldn't feel, and then there's all this sort of brainwashing, but you love me, and then this and this, and they try to really stir up the pot with way too much confusion and usually deception and false projection, which means that they layer on a number of different manipulative tools simultaneously. And until you can take a step back and be centered and focus, People don't have the courage. You need to give yourself permission because they're so fused and enmeshed and oftentimes loyal to the abuser that they have lost perspective of themselves, of their strengths, of their truth, of their lovability, of their genuineness, of their authenticity, of their true good, their wholesomeness, their wholeness. Not whole foods, wholeness. So that autonomy, industriousness, security. I operate on a daily basis with boundaries and standards, which I don't have to put a lot of diesel fuel into in order to maintain and protect. But this is always up for incrimination, if you will. The boundaries and standards get violated. So there's this enmeshment. So like we were saying, the very important skill of intrapersonal relationships. So like Gardner, I think it's, there's 7 different skills, and, one is, intrapersonal, knowing yourself. Another is intrapersonal relationships. I-N-T-E-R, personal relationship wisdom. So that's understanding relationships between others. So it is that first skill of intrapersonal relating that's just sort of on the target board, the sort of map for AIM. It's sort of the app for target, if you will, that's sort of at that of what their focus is to sort of upset or disturb, which is your center and focus, which is your listening to your inner voice, your intuition, paying attention to your gut feeling, knowing what something is right and not knowing having to doubt it, knowing that something feels bad and not knowing that you have to suffer. So you're unable to identify and validate what is a transgression. So this creates a confusion. This creates fog. This is what permits abuse to be perpetuated and to be ongoing and prolonged for some time before it's really identified, managed, and then resolved, otherwise liberated. So to exit from that engineered chaos, you have to understand the many, many layers, oftentimes of sophisticated, the 3 or 4 areas that are simultaneously being engaged. Number 1 is that they will really sort of rob from you or sort of put on the map for sort of removing is your center and your focus, your I am. We're talking about something very kinesthetically foundational for you, which means it's just a feeling. It's a B state. So everything, think positive, but we're talking really about a B state. So oftentimes people have not visited there. They have not had the opportunity. They have not had it validated, because if you did, you'd be able to recognize and validate when there is this transgression and knowing what to do right away. It wouldn't take you 10 years to finally make the phone call or stand up for yourself. So many viewers, I should have done this 40 years ago. I did not know. Well, we didn't have YouTube 40 years ago. We didn't have a lot of this information in the digital revolution here. So I hope that these videos do help, but realize that you have to understand sort of where the wound is. And it's really in the deep sort of bowels of your be, just to be, to exist. Oh, peace and harmony, that sounds so airy-fairy. When you really talk about it, if you could identify the hurt, the feeling, the transgression of what it feels like to be involved in engineered chaos. In other words, to always have your day ruined, to have your plan spoiled, to have it, embarrassed. You can't have your friends over to meet your spouse because of how bad your spouse berates you. You're embarrassed for their behavior at company gatherings and what they make you do, and then almost cause you to lose your cool, or what something is usually up for you losing, pulling out your worst side is usually the target. So it's at that B state. So it's really affects which you don't usually immediately at the cause of the abuse, you do not have control over your B state. It usually makes it near impossible to identify that, either as a young child, a newlywed, an adult. You can't, part of the problem is that these transgressions are covered up. They are deceived. They are these knee-jerk reactions, which you agree to. Basically, you're taught then to believe that you are less than. You're taught to believe that you can't think, or it's improper for, so it's this very usually dismissive or minimizing B state. So people have to, really reduce their actual life, into very, very limited, and they feel very, very restricted, under control, under the thumb, under the ball and chain. There's a heaviness. They're heavy-handed. They're cold, callous, mean, rude, and you're unwilling to put and connect the dots because you cannot believe your gut, which you've been taught to not pay attention to by an abuser. It just keeps them a resource. So if you can see the cause that creates this effect, so the engineered chaos is to keep you sort of falling into their trap, falling into their hands, recovering. How many times have you had to pick yourself up, recover, pick up a broken heart, all these different situations where you've been on the down, on the mend, and this to be so, but it will not be validated, quote unquote, in reality by this person. They will not own their transgressions. They will not apologize. They will not acknowledge and validate your feelings. But you can't really see it and know it because it's been so tuned out. In the course of engineered chaos, you've had to turn down the dial on tuning into, this is wrong, this is not right. How do I handle this? Well, oftentimes these transgressions were occurring over a series of times where you did not hear that voice. You could not. There was forced overwhelm, so you had to comply. Passive aggressive, not catching the red flags, not being able to confront due to uncomfortable tension, not knowing if you could back yourself up, and feeling that others would not back you up because of all the other, what they call in psychology, the flying monkeys, their posse of ringlets, or the ring of pretenders who will essentially just advocate for them or enable, allow their antics to continue because they don't want the other side. They've seen what people who do not go along with the program, or who aren't sort of the chosen few, and what happens, and they go, oh, well, I want the prize of aligning with a narcissist or psychopath, whatever that payoff is. So you really have to be keen onto yourself and going, wow, even if it was this many years ago, what was the payoff that I needed to buy into, agree to, in order to allow, or this type of style of relationship to be perpetuated? Think of it as like a role at a job. You might not work at that type of place anymore, but think of it as kind of like a previous role. Not now. You would not fit into the shoes. You would not fit into the uniform. You would not fit into that you would not accept. You'd hear it one more time. You go, no way, I'm out of here. You would not question or doubt yourself. Like, in other words, you have to be able to realize when these transgressions were, and when you maybe sort of laughed at, oh, this was just putting me under the bus, ha ha ha. Oh, I didn't get support here. Oh, or I missed out on that one day. Yeah, we had, I missed that one class. You know what, that one dream. You know what, that one whole house, and then you start to look at it and you say, wow, I see how my vision had been marred and I was not able to have a validation. So people with empathy under this abuse are usually waiting for a check and balance from they're overly loyal to the malignant narcissist. They're only proceed until they say go. So this other person is literally pulling the strings, pulling the purse strings, you know, saying you can walk, breathe, jump, play dead, you know, and for all, you know, you've been told to play dead for a long period of time. So you need to kind of be like, you know what? I don't really want to play dead anymore. It ain't, you know, really working out for me. It might have, you know, been something that I had to go through for some period of time. You know, it was just what happened back at that. But, you know, it doesn't really fit me now. So when we talk about sort of how do you leave it, you have to realize that the chaos is no longer a good fit. It does not make you feel good. It is always leaving you with a bad, meaning a negative feeling, and owning it as such. Meaning, why is there always a sock, a banter, something that you have to be wary of, be careful of? There's always sort of this emotional minefield that you always feel it's because you are coming to terms with their antics. You're coming to terms with their manipulation. You're beginning to have eyes where you did not have any earlier. You're beginning to have perspective and vision where you did not have perspective and vision, that you could say, aha, oh. You did not have that oh moment. You did not say oh enough. You were not allowed to have that check in and then be able to back up yourself moment. And then your identity. I am drinking Fresca. I love, this is like my favorite. I have like one of these, is like an etched glass. I'm just drinking water out of this. I love these glasses and they are so fragile. But anyway, this is what Peace and Harmony is into. I do not have any other glasses right now. Need to get those moved out for right now in the Peace and Harmony studio. So regardless, so the leaving the chaos is to realize that it is designed not as excitement, thrill, you know, all these other, this is what love is. So how do you misname, miscategorize, get disorganized by the chaos? Which means there might have some bases that you feel that you did not get your foot on and were not able to because of this relationship. You were not permitted. You know, you were not allowed. That was not, you know, you did not have the opportunity. Your sense of self was required. This might sound very odd to those people who have not been through this sort of abuse. This is an intangible. It's very difficult, I think, for a lot of people who, you know, have all sorts of responsible things, and then like this just does not match up. They do not have the skills to identify this and manage it and handle it, and instead of living like that, they're always coping with it. However, so to really leave it is to realize it. It's to get you distracted. It's to get you off center. It's to get you to pay attention to them and not to yourself. It's to get you to designed to give them, to buy, you know, to provide, to give into, to play into their insatiable need for power and control. So that might have been required. That might have been rewarding. That might have been necessary. That might have been the terms of the engagement of your relationship. That was then, however, this is now. You did not see those terms, and you did not have any rules of your own that you could advocate for. So that could have been the problem. That could have been the problem. So you have to be willing to identify and look at and know that you can face and move and resolve this issue as a problem. So identify it and say, oh, I get it. I've identified it as such. You know, there was this transgression where I was not permitted a chance to usually register the red flags as such. I could not see them as such. This is what I thought love was. This roller coaster, this addiction, this depression. I'm depressed for 4 years. Oh, I thought, this was Gone with the Wind. Isn't there some movie that this is what love is? So where is your template, for what love is okay? Where have you drawn outside of the lines? Where is it getting too out of hand, too out of control? It's like, man, this is not how I want my relationship to shape up. So you have to get to the blueprint and go and be willing to have the courage to say, you know what? And not only the courage, but to identify and accept and know and to stop giving up the knowledge of when your boundaries were violated, transgressed, and what this truly means and meant and means for you now. And even if no one else will validate, endorse, support, embrace, validate you, they will not. That is part of their job. They will not. So a lot of people are waiting for that missing piece. The narcissist must apologize. They must agree. They must give me a handshake. They must say, you are, what are you waiting for? A lot of people wait for too long. And, they think that they have all the time in the world. Do you think that is one thing that I am working on, the book that I am working on. One important aspect to underlay, we're talking about that foundational B state. Peace and harmony, this is weird. You bet. You are right. It is ultra weird. But that is because we have the digital revolution and we are here to help you heal. Where people have not hitherto been able to identify, handle, or manage before successfully. Back in the day, people used to go through shock treatments if they had depression. Excuse me, I have a tickle. Back in the day in, the 60s and 70s, if people had depression, you'd be looking at shock treatments. We're talking about electrical rewiring. We're talking about losing memories, erasing memories of these bad feelings or wherever it is. I mean, this is real invasive. Meaning it's invasive. It's in the violation, I would say, of the narcissist or psychopath. It's the highest of invasiveness. It will feel invasive. But it's very difficult to identify this as such. Invasiveness, violation, crossing of boundaries, against the rules, against protocol, against social norms, against what is healthy, against what is positive, namely, that feels right for you. And this will go on for some period of time so that right no longer feels right anymore. Being in suffering feels like the new normal for these people. Being, inhibited, being unhappy becomes the new B state. And they will live in this, and they will not ever get a chance to sort of be uplifted and sort of hold their head up safely. So what does this mean? It is to realize, and identify the B state. And is it allowed you this sort of expansive safety that you're connected to something greater, not just to this person, but other than something else, in that they are included? Do they have reverence? Do they have respect? Do they have empathy? Or are they very judgmental? Do they create a lot of chaos, hoops, and hurdles for you to jump that causes, one to fall, miss out, feel dumb, feel falsely accused? This is engineered chaos. It's designed to get you off center, off balance, and diffused in your self-care, and instead engage in self-sabotage, because you end up mimicking the bad emotional behavior of self-reference that is instilled in the course of this type of relationship. So it is like the double whammy, the double negative. So this is how really the most insidious is this sort of covert or psychopathic abuse, the gaslighting and brainwashing that leads to this engineered chaos, that you have to comply to this deception. You have to comply to their negative commands, that you can't, do a jig, you can't do the splits, you can't do the rumba, the zumba, the zumba, the meditation, the chill day, whatever, you can't have this, what's wrong with you, and so in other words, there's this, it's usually you can identify, because the minute you're getting a toe up on something good, it's usually up for, it's support, it's, as in unsupported. It is sort of not, it is not up to par. It is not up to snuff, is what they're trying to say. That's because they have a diffuse anger, which they have this insatiable need for power and control. So if you elevate or become yourself, they cannot control you. They cannot have power over you. This makes them very uncomfortable. This is what a scapegoat goes through. This is what becomes then of, victimization, isolation, scapegoating, and the projection, and all that we talk about here as these insidious, very difficult for healthy others to relate to or identify. So it's difficult to release if you don't get that validation. How can you release something that you don't know what it is? Hey, do this and this. Well, how can you do it if you don't know what to do? And so people will traipse along in this half-known state, which is known as uncertainty. So we're going to take up more of this in future videos, but you have to look at that B state and look at when that was violated, and then see and know what is self-respect. In other words, that begin to work on that intrapersonal relationship, that relationship within. Oh, I really need to work on this. Oh, I really want to have that. Oh, I kept stopping myself there. Oh, I really need to get this and this checked out for myself. Oh, I really do need to take this class. Oh, I really do want to do. And then liberate yourself, break free from that limitation, that bar that has been sort of set back on you to hold you down and keep you separated, and really sort of unrecognizing attention to yourself. So it's an invalidated state that is designed for, it's a disempowered state. So for example, if you wanted, to rule over people, if you didn't want them to know anything, you wouldn't give them information. You would tell them that they're stupid. You would starve them. You would cause them to become dysfunctional, and then they would become like sheeple. So these people don't really take relationships. They take sheeple. They don't, that might sound silly, but anyway, is that, so you have to look at how your intrapersonal, meaning within yourself relating, and we need to really step it up there, fuel it with really premium healing for you. We really need to focus on this. We need to really get into this quantum healing. This is a quantum healing. This is an energetic, you can call it woo-woo. This is not woo-woo. This is real. And so it's a discussion, based, so we can come to some terms so that you, the viewer, yes, you, the one who's like, I need to fix this peace and harmony, what the bleep, that you have rules. You have terms. Oh, they might have told me this peace and harmony all these decades ago. Yeah, but you didn't get it then, or you didn't write it down. You didn't listen to yourself. It went in through one ear, throughout the other. The problem, another main recurring problem, is that once you have engaged in this self-denial of self-esteem, because to be in a relationship with this engineered chaos, you are disempowered. You must live in and actively engage in self-denial, which means being separated from your needs, your wants, knowing what these are and how to soothe them, resolve them, take care of them, including the basics: eating, having a roof over your head, having a relationship, having a vehicle, clothing, utilities. We're talking about living, just basics, and this is where the injury. This is where part of the problem is in this area. So because there was no positive self-reference permitted, because it's like you cannot simultaneously get attention and be in a relationship with someone who is a insatiable need for power and control. It is just it is a no can do. It is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. You may want it, wish it, hope it, dream it, think it, see it, say a prayer, light a candle, get a flashlight for it, get a new pair of shoes, get a new Instagram, whatever it is. Eventually you're going to hit kind of like a rock bottom, and you're going to have to get perspective. And it's a change of perspective, a positive self-reference point. Oh my God, peace and harmony, I've never experienced that before. Well, guess what? That's because that was a prohibited place. Don't go there, you could be happy. Don't go there, you could giggle. Don't go there, you could be smart. Don't go there, you could have somebody appreciate you. Don't go there, someone might listen and give you eye contact, and then the narcissist would not be enabled. The psychopath would not have their plot, they'd have their plot foiled. They would be exposed. So this is the problem. And then, of course, they do not want to be exposed. So, of course, where do you see how the healing really has to kind of come back in your own arena? This is your buddy, peace and harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate to this channel for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. We love to hear from you. We love your contributions. We love your comments and everything. So keep up the good work. And I hope that you are able to sort of let this marinate and sort of, for some time, because it's going to it's going to require some repeated attention for you. Have a beautiful day. And I'm working the new phone.